Okay, so when I was 19 years old, I came across the Grateful Dead album American Beauty. Well, is it American Beauty or is it American Reality? If you look at the CD cover, which is my era, the CD cover in a certain light, it looked like it could say either. So that felt kind of trippy at the time, but it also, I think, is a kind of a message that's coming from the album. And also on the album was this signature image that the Grateful Dead have. So the Grateful Dead, if you don't know, are a kind of cult band from America, very much of the hippie era. So I should dedicate this talk actually to the great guru Jerry Garcia, and of course to my teacher Banti. But the signature image of the Grateful Dead is this skeleton. Sometimes it's a skull, but sometimes it's a skeleton wearing a garland of red roses. In fact, American Beauty roses. If you've seen the film American Beauty, that's a type of rose. So that for me already felt like a bit of a teaching or a paradox. I mean, what was this? So you have a skeleton, right? It's dead, it's white. And then you've got something, a red rose that's so alive, it's blossoming, it's at the height of full bloom. Something that's pared down and something that's vibrant and so alive. So at the time it felt a bit of a paradox, but looking back, I wonder if it was giving me glimpses of wisdom that the Dharma has to offer. And then the next stage in my journey, and a big part of my journey was the Grateful Dead, was I saw them consecutively on 3 days in Las Vegas, in a big stadium outside Las Vegas. Now then, I have to hold my hand up and say I was off my head on mushrooms for most of the time, but it was an amazing experience of just glimpsing something more to life, the vastness of consciousness and interconnection, the great potential of interconnectedness. And they're a very interesting band to see live because, if you think about bands of their era, sort of like the Stones, right? You go and see the Stones, you know about it. First of all, you pay a lot of money. Secondly, it's them. They are the focal point, they are centre stage. With the Grateful Dead, it's not like that. In the Grateful Dead concerts, the audience, the crowd, are as much of the show as the band. So I was thinking about it today. Imagine if we transported Buddhafield and we were all in a stadium, right? So there was some band playing, but we were all in the stadium. The field was in the stadium. It gives you some idea of the sort of vitality and vibrancy and kind of friendliness and interplay and creativity that the Deadheads, as they're called, have. So they kind of create this world within a world. And there's a section always in Grateful Dead concerts where they do what they call space and drums. So the concerts are really long. They're like 3 or 4 hours. And in the middle, for like an hour and a half, they'll do this sort of space and drum section where they just, I don't know what they're doing, twang, 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 playing some drums, just opening it out. And it's really then you forget about the band and it's like this whole dance of interplay with the crowd, and you really do feel like you're beyond time and space. So it's like they're playing the soundtrack to the crowd. But of course then we'd go from this world outside, we were kind of in the desert in Nevada, in this big stadium, back into Las Vegas. Well, what a contrast, If you ever want to know about the absurdity of conditioned existence, go to Las Vegas, particularly on acid, okay? Because, you've got something on the face of it which is glitzy and glamorous, but you just scratch the surface and underneath there's something very kind of dark and seedy. And the Dharma, the Diamond Sutra talks about life being this kind of mock show, and it definitely felt like that going back, having had this experience at Grateful Dead's concerts into Las Vegas, into this kind of mock show of people so desperately trying to hang on to life, and that kind of being blown apart by this sense of this just feels very empty and very dead. I mean, you have ancient waitresses wearing, bunny girl outfits saying, "Can I help you?" And you're just like, oh my God, this is really weird, So again, there's a sense of that there must be more than this, there's a deeper meaning behind things than what I'm being presented. And on this same road trip around America, I read an article then which talked about the origins of the name of the Grateful Dead. And I was really surprised to hear that it comes from the Bardo Toddle, so the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So the whole idea behind it is that when souls, spirits go into the Bardo, and the Bardo is this state between life and death, it's a kind of no man's land really, between life and death, that you know, what we do, how we remember them, if we think about them, we bless them, we send our well wishes, that really has an effect. It can really help them navigate themselves through the Bardo space. So the dead are grateful to receive these blessings, okay? So that's the whole origin of the name. And of course, this sort of talk about the Bardo and the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that really sparked in me an interest in Buddhism. And it's from then that my kind of truth-seeking started to veer towards Buddhism, and I had my first meditation experience at the Shambhala Institute in Boulder, Colorado. So it's 25 years later, and in that time I found the Dharma. I'm a very committed Dharma practitioner. I have a path that gives my life tremendous meaning, and I feel like I'm on this journey really to increasing understanding and wisdom and compassion. And also I've experienced death in that time in lots of different guises. Suicide, which is still so raw, I can't really talk about it. You know, the deaths that we can kind of prepare for, which, you know, you might have an elderly relative, or my uncle died recently, so did my father-in-law. And you know it's coming, you kind of mentally prepare, but it's still sadness and a loss around it. And that's the kind of, as Debbie was saying, that's the kind of impermanence we can perhaps get our head around. But what happens when people get ripped out of life like that? What happens when death comes at any time? And that's the impermanence that I still have to work really hard with accepting and understanding. So in the last decade, my friend, her partner, very fit, healthy, 30-something, got septicemia and died in a week. Another friend of mine, her brother was killed instantly in a lift shaft accident. And last December, a friend I thought was alive and well in Spain, I had a phone call to say he'd just been found dead in his flat. So what do we do with that? Because, as Debbie was saying, it's a huge shock and a trauma when that happens. So what does the Dharma and what do the Grateful Dead have to say about this? Well, returning to the album, I've realised that a bit like the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there's a huge amount of advice about how to die, not just from the point of view of the person dying, but also from those who left behind, who are experiencing that loss. So what can we do? So really it goes back to this idea of the Grateful Dead, really. We can send our well-wishing, you know, we can be with people, we can give them our love. I believe that more strongly now than ever. And the song Ripple, which is on the album, it acknowledges the fact that death is a rite of passage. It's something that's going to happen to us all. Nobody's going to escape. But it also communicates some of that friendship and well-wishing that we can have alongside the person. So the lyrics say, "There is a road, no simple highway, between the dawn and the dark of night. And if you go, no one may follow. If I knew the way, I would take you home." So it's that real sense of being with somebody, having compassion, sending them out their well-wishing. And I think, as Debbie indicated, this is where wisdom and compassion meet. This is where the reality and beauty meet, because, as we've already said, death is coming for us all, whether we believe it or not, whether we want it or not, whether it's today, tomorrow, in a decade, next year, it's coming for us all. So how do we live with that? How do we live as if each moment was our last? And it's that thing about the beauty of existence, the preciousness of existence, that it's made even more precious with that knowledge. Yes. And a friend of mine who works in a hospice said to me, unless you love something to its very end, your love is conditional. So here's somebody who's saying goodbye to some people every day in that kind of setting. So it's that bearing witness, that ability to stay with what is happening and love it to its very end, because that is all we have at the end of the day. That is all we have. And if we're not able to do that, then something, we're wanting something to be different, or we're wanting things to be a different way, or we're wanting something back. So it's strong. It's a test. It's not easy, but being able to be with things till the very end, to love them with the very end, is this message of compassion. And what about the other side then, from the point of view of the person who's dying? Well, the track that follows Ripple on the American Beauty album is a song called Broke Down Palace. And I've realised that this is a song from the point of view of somebody dying. So they talk about going to leave this broke down palace. So broke down palace, it's a metaphor for the body, and what a brilliant metaphor it is. So something that was so perfect, well, we might not have thought it was perfect, but something that's kind of complete when it's born starts to break down. So you might have your own imagination of what a broke down palace looks like. And the Buddha talked about his own body in this way. He says to Ananda in his final days, my body feels like a cart, an old cart that's held together by string. So there's this sense of, this broke down palace, this thing that served us so well, no longer functioning, and surrendering to that. So it says, going to leave this broke down palace. On my hands and my knees, I will roll, roll, roll. In a bed, by the waterside, I will lay my head, listen to the river, sing sweet songs to rock my soul. So, of course, death can be a time of tremendous fear, confusion, but this image of a river is a very comforting one, I think, and it's a universal symbol. We've heard about the river from Greek myths to Siddhartha, right through to slave songs. It's this place of sweetness and healing and surrender, a passage between life and death, ferrying us across. So this presence of the river, going home, by the waterside, I will rest my bones, listen to the river, sing sweet songs to rock my soul. So the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo, tells us that when the constraints of the body are lifted, what's left is tremendous energy and love. And the song goes on to say, fare you well, I love you more than words can tell. Listen to the river, sing sweet songs to rock my soul. So we don't know when death is coming, and I am certain that it will be the greatest test of my practice. I hope I can meet it when it comes with as much dignity and courage as I can muster. But sometimes the words come to me, and I wonder if I'll bring them to mind on my deathbeds, the words from the final track of the Grateful Dead album called Truckin'. And it goes, sometimes the light's all shining on me, other times I can barely see. Lately it's occurred to me, what a long, strange trip it's been. Thank you very much.